In this video, I'm going to be discussing these things. Filters. Do you need them? Well, let's find out. Roll titles. Hi YouTube, Brian James, that Micro Four Thirds guy, welcoming you 6,500 subscribers to the channel. And if you're not a subscriber already, why not? It's free. Click in the link below and get yourself signed up as a subscriber. Join the 6,500 fantastic people that we already have online. However, in this video, I'm going to talk to you about these things. These are camera filters. It's supposed to go on the front of lenses. And I've been asked a few times on this channel as to what my views are on using filters and which filters to buy and which ones to really to concentrate on. And my views have changed immeasurably since I first started in photography. Now, when I first started in photography, cameras, you used film, a lot of it was black and white, and the use of filters, whether it was a red filter or an amber filter or a yellow filter or a blue filter, they would change how your shot came out. It would change immeasurably how a black and white image could look, because it would filter out certain colours which, although the black and white film didn't see them as colour, they became hot spots or highlights. And by changing the filters, depending on what the light conditions were and what you're trying to do, you could change dramatically a black and white shot. Now, of course, colour film came in, where all sorts of effect filters came in as well. I remember when I first started, I was using Cokin filters on my Olympus gear. And there seemed to be, there was so much desirable stuff amongst filters. There's star filters, and you've got the neutral density filters, of course, and graduated filters, and color graduated filters, sunset filters, starburst filters, circular polarizers, linear polarizers. The list was endless. You could get diffraction lenses to go with the top. You could get it so it would split it into 4, 8, 12, hundreds of different little smaller shots for effects shooting. Now, in those days, that was the only way you're going to be able to take the photograph and have those sort of effects. And a lot of it was to emulate what the big guys were doing, especially what you saw on TV and film and things like that. But these days have changed. Since we got onto digital photography and digital processing, post-processing of images, I am not a great filter user these days. In fact, I rarely use filters at all, except for 3 different types. Now, before I get on to which filters to use, let's have a think about why I'm suggesting that we don't need a lot of filters these days. With post-processing, by taking the raw image in, you're effectively taking what the camera would have seen in the first place through its lens. Now, we want to try and alter what we see. That's what a filter's doing. It's filtering certain things out. It's changing the image. So by having a good raw image in the first place, and I would for these suggest shooting raw, but it doesn't have to be. You can do it on JPEG, but raw really tends to be able to be used best with this. If you're converting a colour image in your camera to monochrome, then you can always apply in post-processing. And by post-process, I'm thinking about things like Lightroom, which is what I use, but the OEM software which comes with the cameras will very often do this. You can apply a lot of those filters that I said, and the good thing with it is you can apply them, and you can apply them, and you can apply them. You can change it as many times as you like. If it doesn't look right, you can put a different filter on. When you're taking a photograph with a filter on the front of the camera, that's what you're stuck with. That image is then permanently set with that color cast or that image cast or whatever it is that your filter's doing. You can't change that. It's permanent. So by being able to actually apply things in post-production, such as blue, red, yellow, whatever it is, filters onto monochrome shots, you've got exactly the same thing that you can see, but it's done post. If you don't like it, you can go back to the original shot and you can change it to something else. You can also play around with multiple filters on that, but the good thing is, apart from buying the software, it's not costing you anything else to do. Now, all of the effects that you can get, the starburst effects and all those other bits and pieces, you can do very easily in post-production. Diffractive sort of effects on there are so easy to do in post-production, where you can, you can do all sorts. You can use post-production to do things like give you some of the fisheye effects like I had on that lens that I reviewed just recently, the 4mm f2.8. I think there's a link above to that one. You can get those sort of effects very easily on it. You can add vignette. You can take vignette away. You can, put a white vignette around. That's what you used to buy filters for originally. If you want soft focus is so easy to do in post-production, it's untrue. But most filters, I don't agree with using. I don't use them anymore myself, and I don't recommend anybody use them. However, there are 3 main filters that I do use. And 3 main filters which I do recommend to other people. Now, a lot depends on your photography and what you actually want to take photographs of, so bear that in mind. You don't need filters for the majority of photography. However, the first filter or first group of filters, should I say, that I recommend are neutral density filters. Good quality neutral density filters which don't put a color cast on. Now, why do I say this? Well, the 3 filters that I'm suggesting can't be replicated easily in post-production. Not properly. You can come to a bit of a side on that, but not properly you can't. Neutral density filters are great if you're doing something where you want a longer shot. If you're taking a picture of a waterfall and you want a creamy effect, you might want a 4, 5, 10 second exposure on your photography, on your photograph. The trouble is, even on a good day, even dropping your ISO down to its absolute minimum, it's still not going to be restricted enough in the light to be able to shut your camera down to slow enough speed. So if you're wanting to really get slow speed and get rid of some of the light that you've got to extend that speed out, neutral density filters are fantastic. A lot of landscape photographers use neutral density filters, sometimes up to 10 and more stops of light reduction. The important thing on those is to get ones which don't put a color cast on. So that's the first type, neutral density filters. The second type of filter is very similar. It's in the same sort of family, and that's a graduated neutral density filter, where you've got the neutral part on the top and a clear part on the bottom, or turned upside down and a clear part on the top and the dark part on the bottom. So why are these important? Well, if you have something like a really bright sky and you want to try and really highlight the landscape below, to try and get the landscape below properly exposed, you're probably greatly overexposing the sky. Alternatively, if you're exposing for the sky, your landscape's going to be very, very dark. Either way, you're pushing the dynamic range of the camera to its limits. What a graduated filter will do is it will darken a portion. So if you slide it in, because usually they come in a square sort of mount, so you slide this neutral density graduated filter in, the top part will take it down by however many stops, 4, 6, 10, whatever it's set to, whatever you buy it for. But the bottom part will still be clear. And you can do your exposure so that the bottom part is properly exposed, but the top part is dulled down so that the camera will see them in unity. They will see them as you want the picture to come out. This is especially useful if you really want to get some dramatic clouds, for instance, but still have the foreground nicely exposed. It's not an easy thing to do in camera, because if you try doing it in post, when you've done it in the camera, if you've exposed for your sky to be right, you happen to pull it out, pull the shadows out, then you get noise problems because you're really pulling it from the depths of the darkness. If you're doing it for your normal exposure, for your foreground, for the ground part, for instance, to be exposed properly, you've burned the highlights out and you can't get those back again. They just can't be retrieved. So graduated neutral density filter is the second one. Falls in the same group, and of course you can use the two together. So if you wanted to dull the sky down but also have a really long exposure, you can use a neutral density filter along with a graduated neutral density filter, and that will give you the ability to get a really slow exposure with the difference between the highlights and the lowlights. So that's the second one. And the third one I suggest, and the third one I like, are these things. Polarizing filters. I love circular polarizing filters. Now it's important to use circular polarizers and not linear. They work in totally different ways. And I'm going to do a video on these very, very soon, because I really do use these quite a lot. I thoroughly enjoy them. I tend to buy them specifically for the lens diameter. So I've got a 46mm lens there, 46mm diameter, which fits on my 17mm Olympus. I've got myself a 58 diameter, which will fit on the majority of my bigger ones, my 12-60 for instance. And I've even got a little tiny 37mm one, which would fit under this Lumix lens, this 12-32, quite happily on there. And it also fits nicely on my 45mm Olympus 1.8. So, what do these do? Well, very, very simply, they polarize the light. They get the light, instead of coming in all directions, they get it into a certain direction. And I'm not going to go into the details on this, but this is something which just cannot be replicated in post-production. They can be used for really bringing out colours in skies. And one of the things I find that a circular polarizing filter is fantastic for, really, really good for, is taking reflections off water. If you're taking a body of water and you get a high sort of sheen on the top where you get a reflection of the sky, this will get rid of it. If you're looking through water, you'll quite often find that you just get a reflection of what's on the surface lighting. But if you use a circular polarizer and turn it so that it polarizes the light right, you'll be able to see deep through the water and down into it. So it's really a useful filter. The problem with it is, in fact the problem with all these filters is, they are filtering the light. They are taking something out of the light. So usually on a circular polarizer you'll lose 1, maybe up to 2 stops of light. Of course, the neutral density filters, they'll take however many stops they're set to take out. That's their whole purpose in life. But none of these can be replicated easily on post-production. Now I say easily because if you remember, I was saying about both the neutral density and the graduated neutral density filter. You can do a graduated neutral density effect on post-production, because quite a lot of them will have a graduated thing down. But the problem that you have with that comes back to what I said before about the fact that you've already burnt your highlights out, or you're already way down deep in the shadows to get your lowlights. So although you can put an effect on with that, it's not going to retrieve that information that you lost in the first place because you're outside the dynamic range of the camera. Now, if you've enjoyed this video, give me a big thumbs up, please. That really does push it so that more and more people on YouTube can see these videos. And I do get feedback from people saying that they enjoy them and they learn from them. But actually, I think an awful lot of people learn from some of your comments below. And certainly I do. So if you haven't left a comment, please leave a comment on the video below. It really is useful, not just for myself, but for other people. And of course, if you want to support the channel, there's a PayPal link below if you want to buy me a cup of coffee or something a little bit more to help the channel keep on the air. So what filters do you use? Do you use filters at all? And if so, what do you use them for? There are so many uses for filters if you want to use them. But as I say, a lot of what we used to use filters now, previously for, are now done in post-production. But if you're still using filters, let me know. I know an awful lot of the landscape photographers will get online and tell me that they use neutral density and graduated filters, because that seems to be a staple diet for their sort of photography style. But it's not limited to landscape. It really isn't. I've used circular polarizing filters in all sorts of areas, and I've used that neutral density and graduated filters for all sorts of things. Do you get creative with your filters? Again, if you have a creative sort of side for using these filters, drop me a comment below. But until the next time, this is Brian James, that Micro Four Thirds guy, saying keep on enjoying your photography, keep on using filters if you use them, and if you haven't tried them, they are worth doing. But just bear in mind that a lot of what you want to do can already be done with stuff you already have. Till the next time, keep on taking the camera out, keep on having fun. Bye-bye.